Whether we like it or not, we are always making impression on others. Like right now, I'm making an impression about myself in your minds. So also for nations, organizations, everybody. What's the image, for example, we had of China? Until recently, a global factory producing goods at rock bottom prices. It was like a conveyor belt for the whole world. But now, seen as a criminally irresponsible country, having failed to inform other nations about the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. And the US, for over 100 years, seen as the most powerful nation on earth. Some would call it a global bully or a world policeman. But now, seen as a nation in a retreat from its role as a world leader. And India, until recently seen as a potential superpower, at least in the long run, but now seen as a nation that ill-treats, ignores, and metes out injustice to millions of its workers who have been abandoned and left to fend for themselves in a time of crisis. During the turbulent days of the French Revolution in the late 18th century, the Queen of France, Marie Antoinette, when told about the workers not having enough bread to eat, is alleged to have asked, why don't they eat cake? Today, as we see millions of our workers trudge home hundreds of kilometers, sometimes more than 1,000 kilometers, by rickshaw, by cycles, but mostly on foot, hungry and famished, denied of any transport because of the lockdown, and having no money owing to 2 months of joblessness, we as a nation seem to be asking, why don't they fly down? Oh yes, talking about flying, the good news for India is that the first of the 36 Rafale fighter jets that India is buying from Dassault Aviation of France for 7.87 billion euros, or about 590 billion rupees, which means about 16 billion rupees per aircraft, are arriving by the end of July. And that's when many of these workers who are walking home are expected to reach their dear homes, if at all. The visuals are heart-rending, throwing light on how insensitive we are to the have-nots. Caught on camera by Indian and international media.
I want to leave you tonight with more images that I want you to think about when you sleep tonight. Our first image. When the wait for a train got too long, this man built himself a hand-pulled cart to pull his pregnant wife and 2-year-old child from Hyderabad to Balaghat in Madhya Pradesh. That's right. From Hyderabad to Balaghat in Madhya Pradesh is 650 kilometers, my friends.
चप्पल आपके
चप्पल टूट गई।
तो एक काम कीजिए, आप मेरा वाला आएगा, पहन के देखिए। ये आएगा तो आप पहनिए। नहीं पहन लो, आपका रास्ता बहुत दूर है, मैं तो इंतजाम कर लूंगा अपना। आप पहन के देखो, आता है क्या? पहन लो। सलमान रावी, BBC, दिल्ली।
Not all tragedies are caught on camera though. Like the case of 26-year-old Sagir Ansari, who was cycling all the way from Delhi to his village in East Champaran, Bihar, when he was run over by a car in Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. Or the case of the 16 men who were run over by a goods train near Aurangabad, when they were on their way to Umaria and Shahdol districts in Madhya Pradesh, a good 800 kilometers on foot. At 9 p.m. on May 7th, one of them had called his wife, Krishnavati Singh, and said, "We'll die of thirst and hunger. Even our contractor is not paying us." Painful last words. His wife, Krishnavati, would later tell media, "We are landless. We don't even have a head of cattle to pledge and take a loan. My husband stepped out in the first place because we have nothing to eat at home." Or the case of Rampukar Pandit, who was caught sitting by a wayside in Delhi and weeping because his son lay dying in Bihar and he had no way to reach his 1-year-old son. He was caught on camera by PTI photographer Atul Yadav, and by the time he got help and reached home, his son was gone, leaving him with 3 daughters and his ailing wife. Seeing all these hapless, impoverished people walking the length and breadth of the country, one is left to wonder, where have all the people in leadership roles gone? What about all the district collectors through whose districts they're walking? What about the MLAs and MPs through whose constituencies they are walking? Where are the chief ministers of different states? And of course, the central government. Instead, what we hear are conflicting voices. The Ministry of Home Affairs says nobody is allowed to walk. Stop it. And when a petition reaches the Supreme Court about the walkers, the court says don't expect us to do it, it's a duty of administration. One wonders whether India has moved from a make in India to walk in India. Seeing these hapless millions, one is reminded of an incident in the 2016 election campaign when the Prime Minister compared Kerala to Somalia, pointing out that the infant mortality rate in a particular scheduled tribe community in Kerala was equal to that of Somalia. That was wicked statistic. Today, Kerala is winning applause from around the world, from the Washington Post to the BBC to the Guardian in London, while India is in danger of painting itself as a Somalia in front of the whole world, changing over from a potential superpower to an exposed super poor. The visuals we've been seeing on our television screens over the past few weeks come close to those of the partition of the subcontinent into India and Pakistan in 1947, or the visuals of millions fleeing into India following the 1971 Bangladesh war. But what is completely different here is that we have no war situation, but merely the mismanagement or failure of the federal and state governments to consider the issue of workers before they hastily decided on a lockdown and banned all transport. And they were asked to sit at home, first for 21 days, then for 19 days, then for 14 days, and now for another 14 days. What did we expect them to think while they were sitting at home, many of them starving? A shining India, Ache Din, or Sabka Vikas? I repeat, Sabka Vikas. Forget the slogans. If India could have one Rafale less, it would make available more than 16 billion rupees. Assuming that an average Indian worker lives 400 kilometers from his workplace, and assuming that only 2 can be transported by a car in today's social distancing norms, and considering that taxis are available at 10 rupees a kilometer, for 4,000 rupees per worker, we could transport 4 million workers for the cost of a Rafale in style by taxis to their homes. And each one of them would be smiling year to year and proud of being an Indian. Of course, if buses and trains could be made available, we could do this job for the cost of less than half a Rafale. Actually, why should we be talking about sacrificing a Rafale? Our workers would have gone home on their own if only they were given 48 hours notice before the lockdown and ban on transport. They would have paid out of their pockets from their hard-earned money and gone home in dignity with heads held high. They wouldn't want the federal and state governments to haggle over who pays 85% and who pays 15%, while in reality they are paying out of their pockets. And instead, we give them fantastic dreams, like a fleet of Rafales coming, and how we're going to teach Pakistan a lesson, and how we're going to get a brand new parliament building at 9 billion rupees, so that our rulers can rule even better, and followed by a bullet train from Ahmedabad to Mumbai for 1.57 trillion rupees. What would these impoverished people be thinking when we tell them, cheer up, we're going to grow from a 2.7 trillion economy to a 5 trillion economy? And what are the emotions they must be suppressing when they hear that another 686 billion rupees of loans taken by willful defaulters have been written off. Thank goodness we have the occasional uplifting news as well, like that of Asian Paints deciding to hike the salary of its employees during these trying times, indirectly telling them how much they mean to the company. Or the case of US theatre writer-director Terry John Converse, who is presently in lockdown with a family in Kochi. He says he's so impressed by the family, which has decided to have only one meal a day, internalizing the pain of the millions who are going without even one good meal every day. On self-reflection, we have so many positives. We have 650 million under the age of 26, making us the largest young country in the world. 650 million is more than 2 United States. And we have a space research organization that can take an orbiter to Mars for less than 5 billion rupees, or 1/3 the price of a Rafale. A nation with so many positives should not be looking aghast at a situation like this and left clueless for a solution. It takes only half a Rafale or even an average administration to let our people know how much they mean to us, and which is why we are getting all these Rafale jets, the best in the world, to protect them, because they are the nation's most treasured possessions. It isn't bullet trains or fighter jets that bring a sense of belongingness among all citizens, but genuine concern for real needs of people, like having to reach home in a time of crisis, and that too to escape starvation. Images are very hard to erase. It's nearly half a century since Idi Amin ruled Uganda. But mention Uganda today and Idi Amin still pops in mind. It is nearly half a century since the United States lost a war in Vietnam. But mention Vietnam even today, images of the world's mightiest nation losing a war pops to mind. India should never leave an image of a nation that treats its people like dirt. Thank you.